Hello, this video is in response to some questions that we've been getting about how to engage your remote students when you're teaching in a hybrid classroom. You may notice that this video is being auto-captioned. This is actually not YouTube that's auto-captioning. This is PowerPoint Online. And this is a great way to create captions both live in Zoom and then also obviously for your recording. You can learn more about it by watching a video that is posted below in the notes to this video. So when you have students on Zoom and live students in your classroom, how do you make sure that those remote students are feeling connected and keeping up with what's going on in the classroom? I have 3 ideas for you to try out in your class. They take different approaches to incorporating those remote students. First, you can work to replicate the in-person experience for students attending on Zoom. Second, you can kind of take the opposite approach and play to the strengths of each mode differently. And those 2 ideas are discussed in greater depth in the Insight Higher Ed video that's also in the notes to this video below. And then finally, you can create resilient tools to incorporate students in both modes in the same way. So let me tell you a little bit about each one of these strategies. So you can replicate the in-person experience for your Zoom students in a couple of different ways. You can assign roles within your classroom so that your in-person students rotate the role of chat moderator. This can be a great way to make sure that your quieter students who are attending in person also have a chance to have their voices be heard. So you can assign that student on that day to be the chat moderator. They're responsible for connecting to the Zoom meeting on their device, muting everything, but following the chat so that they can bring the contributions of the remote students into the in-person classroom. When you assign small group or breakout room tasks, it's easy to group those remote students together in a breakout room, but make sure that you are giving yourself time to check in on them and also creating meaningful tasks for these small groups or breakout rooms with products like summaries or memes or questions or problems so that you can check that they're engaged in the task, even if you're not able to see them as easily as you can see those in-person students. A lot of people use Google Docs where students in breakout rooms can type live so you can actually check in on them as if you were walking around the room listening in on the conversations. Finally, you can use polls within Zoom or other tools to check understanding and to kind of read the room. So maybe your in-person students are connected to Zoom on their devices or to Pear Deck so that everybody can answer the same quiz questions, and then you can get kind of a global sense of where everybody is rather than relying on just the facial expressions of those in-person students and potentially missing the remote students. So you can work to replicate the in-person experience for your Zoom students. You can also play to the strengths of each mode differently. So for instance, remote students can lead discussion. They are not wearing masks. Everybody can hear them really well because the sound works really well for the Zoom students to be heard in the classroom. And they can also share their screens. So maybe remote students participate by rotating the role of discussion leader. Remote students can play a fact checker role. So they're already online, they're attending on Zoom, so they have their browser right there. So maybe their role is to look up examples or to answer questions that people don't know the answer to, or to check statistics, taking advantage of their situation to the strength of the class discussion. Remote students might have the role of supplying a synthesis of the previous class or at the end of the class or the beginning of the next one. Maybe they could select the best quote of the last day and either post on Moodle or kick off class by helping with that synthesis. So You can create special roles for remote student participation that take advantage of their situation, and then let the in-person students participate in the traditional ways that play to their strengths, asking questions, answering your questions, carrying the discussion, where it can be a little harder for those remote students to kind of naturally break into the conversation. The in-person students can participate that way. Finally, you can create resilient tools to engage both modes in the same way. So you might use Moodle or Flipgrid to assign students to submit a discussion question or summarize one of the readings or contribute their ideas before class, kind of in a just-in-time teaching mode. You could use a tool like Pear Deck to check for understanding during class or collect final reflections or remaining questions or muddiest points after class. And then you have everybody's ideas and questions in the same format because they're all using one of these online tools to do it. And then you can bring in those ideas and those questions from both sets of students into class in the same way, making sure that everybody's ideas get out there in the classroom. So for more information, we know that there's a lot of interest in Pear Deck, and we're going to create some additional training sessions, both for getting started and also those of you who've been using it a bit and want to know more. So look for those sessions being advertised soon. We have a lot of remote and hybrid teaching tools on our webpage, or you can reach out to me or to Candace or to Christy or anybody at CTL for ideas about how to develop a strategy further.